all of you. Thank you, Sinaji, for inviting me. Thank you, Ashutosh sir. He was my senior in IMS PHU. And pranam to all my seniors, and namaskar to all my colleagues in this webinar on lipid. So basically, I am going to talk about abnormal HDL value and its clinical implication. So, as my previous speaker was discussing non-HDL cholesterol target. So basically, life is not such an easy task that you have just one value and conclude that this is good or this is bad. So whenever we talk about the cholesterol, we talk about the good cholesterol, we talk about the bad cholesterol. So most of the discussion in this conclave also was on the bad cholesterol, the triglyceride, the LDL cholesterol. But let's focus on the HDL value. Before I start my presentation, this is my disclosure. I have nothing to disclose. The two important prepositions I want to add here in the presentation, that we see a lot of the patients who have very high HDL cholesterol, but they have diabetes. There are also individuals who have cholesterol, but they do not develop clinically significant atherosclerosis. That is very important.
Dr. Sir,
yes, sir.
Sir, just give me 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sir, there is an important announcement for the attendees. Please listen it. Please switch off the TV or other electric appliances near you. It is creating background. I will request all of you to please turn off any electronic devices near you so that you can proceed with the presentation. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Go ahead. Dr. Abhishek.
Okay, so I am really sorry because of connectivity issue and because I was unmuted multiple times. Might be possible my voice was not audible to you.
No, so no, Dr. Abhishek, now it is clearly audible to everybody. Go ahead. Now the background disturbances is off. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you. So before I start my presentations, the two statements which I want to make, that there are still substantial number of patients that experience a complication of coronary heart disease despite exhibiting high HDL cholesterol level. So you are very happy that person is having very high HDL cholesterol, but still that person developed coronary artery disease. And there are individuals who have low HDL cholesterol but they do not develop any coronary artery disease. So this is not very simple to say that you are targeting non-HDL cholesterol, or you are targeting LDL, or you are targeting triglyceride. It's more complex. So let's have a glimpse on what the clinical implication of HDL is all about. So in today's scenario, what is important for dyslipidemia? So I think extremely important is high LDL. So most of the guidelines are talking about the LDL value. You have to target the LDL. Some are talking about the non-HDL, as my previous speaker, the high triglyceride value. And now the least important, and let's talk about the HDL value. We always talk about the bad guys, but we seldom talk about the good guys. So let's have a view that bad is always bad, so it has to remain in the normal range. That's why we always target the LDL, we always target the triglyceride. But the target of SDL is important or not, that I will proceed on. So as you can see from this slide, the chylomicron, VLDL, intermediate density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein, and on the x-axis you look for the particle diameter. So it's the particle diameter of chylomicron is very high. After that, VLDL, then IDL, LDL, SDL has low particle diameter size. And in the y-axis, you'll see there's a density. So which is most dense? The SDL cholesterol. So whenever we talk about the high density lipoprotein, we have to just revise a quick revision of about lipid metabolism and the reverse cholesterol transport. So reverse cholesterol transport, there are some important transporters, there are some important receptors which we should understand. So let's focus on this. This is ABCA1. ABCA1 stands for ATP binding cascade transporter protein A1. APO A1, that is apolipoprotein A1. The A1C is a cholesterol esterase. CETP stands for cholesterol ester transport protein. SDL is high density lipoprotein cholesterol. LCAT is a lecithin cholesterol acetyltransferase. LDL is low density cholesterol. So Scamander receptor class B type 1. So focus on SRB1 first. Okay. So if SRB1 is overexpressed, what will happen? There will be increased metabolism of SDL cholesterol. So what will happen? The SDL value will decrease. So if there is some changes, deletion of SRB1, so it will lead to increase in SDL cholesterol. Similarly, just focus on CETP. We have drugs which inhibits the CETP. So if you use the CETP inhibitors, what will happen? It will increase the high density lipoprotein. It will lower down the triglyceride. It will lower down the LDL value. So it's very complex. The SDL, the reverse cholesterol transport, and this reverse cholesterol transport is being elaborated year by year. The things are being added, receptors are being added, and new targets are being researched for. So regulation and metabolism of high density cholesterol is complex, and there are several subclasses with different functions in SDL cholesterol. Plasma SDL levels do not necessarily represent a reliable reflection of macrophages reverse cholesterol transport rates. So it's very important to understand. Just you are ordered the lipid profile of that patient, and you find that the lipid profile SDL value was more than 60. You are very happy. Oh, my patient SDL is very good. But patient say, no, doctor, I had one episode of coronary artery disease. So it signifies that just SDL level is not going to help it. That there are more other things which we have to consider in interpreting these values, the lipid profile values. So let us evaluate the SDL and its clinical relevance. Sinha ji, how can I see the audience and head up my presentation also? Because I am just having my presentation.
No, you continue. You are audible. Your slides are nicely visible. Don't worry. You are audible.
Okay, sir. So let's evaluate the SDL and its clinical relevance. So in past, we used to say that SDL is cardioprotective. So there are various epidemiological studies which correlated SDL value and cardiovascular disease. There were clinical trials focusing on SDL improvement and its outcome. In the present scenario, we have a recent development of drugs which can lead to increased SDL cholesterol. And there are guidelines also. And now the future is the ongoing clinical development for SDL modifying substances. So we have substances which can modify your SDL value. So I am going to evaluate in this clinical relevance the SDL. So I think this slide already been discussed in my previous speakers also. So I am skipping on it. The important point which I want to stress is that SDL cholesterol measurement do not reflect the SDL function in reverse cholesterol transport. That thing I need to re-emphasize, because in last presentation also there was some question from the audience that the non-SDL target was not achieved. The triglyceride value was higher, but maybe the scenario the patient is not having other risk factors. So we have to interpret just not seeing the SDL value, not seeing the non-SDL value, because like if the SDL value is more than 65, okay, you are happy, but the non-SDL value is lower side, but the LDL value is higher side. That means the patient is having risk factor. The patient, you have to target the LDL. So you have to target the LDL, you have to target the triglyceride, and then you will target the risk factor, the proper risk factor for atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. So low SDL is associated with more cardiovascular disease. So this is a question that is being discussed by many trials, and let's analyze it. So there has been found that increment in SDL leads to significant reduction in cardiovascular disease. So high density lipoprotein cholesterol and cardiovascular disease. This is a 4 prospective American studies, and they have found that there is an inverse relation of SDL cholesterol and incidence of coronary heart disease. The CPPT stands for Coronary Primary Prevention Trial. MRFIT stands for Multiple Risk Factor Intervention Trial. The FHS stands for Framingham Heart Study. So in all these studies, they have found that decrement of if there is an increment in SDL, it leads to significant reduction in cardiovascular disease. These are the statistical things. I think this needs to be kept out. So low SDL is also associated with high risk of cardiovascular disease, but when it is adjusted for age and gender, and so you can see here after this it is 60, 70. So by just increasing more SDL cholesterol, you are not having a increased benefit. So relationship between SDL and cardiovascular risk is not linear. So greater than SDL cholesterol is 60 milligram. It is not showing any benefit in cardiovascular disease reduction. So this need to be emphasized here, that SDL cholesterol is increasing in more than 60, then also it is not going to give you extra benefits. So that's why most of the drugs, the CETP inhibitors drugs which have been used, they have increased the SDL value, but they have not having any mortality benefit. So high SDL may increase cardiovascular disease risk. So there is a post hoc analysis of 2 prospective studies, that is IDEAL study and study. And in these 2 studies, they have found that in IDEAL study, the higher SDL cholesterol proved age, gender, smoking, ApoA1 and ApoB. A similar association was SDL particle size in EPIC Norfolk study, and increased risk estimates were particularly present in the high ends of the distribution. So very important. Just you can see this post hoc analysis of IDEAL and the EPIC Norfolk. They have found that even the high SDL cholesterol can be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Now coming to the Framingham Offspring study, that is in this they have found that there is an inverse association between SDL cholesterol and risk of cardiovascular disease, and but it remains unclear whether low SDL cholesterol remains a cardiovascular disease risk factor or not. So so analysis was done in 3,500 males and females from Framingham Heart Sting Offspring study, and 24 years of follow-up was done. It's so evident that if the triglyceride is more, LDL is more, so you have a high risk for cardiovascular disease. That's why most of the guidelines talk about the triglyceride, most of the guidelines talk about the LDL, but they seldom talk about the SDL or non-SDL. Why? This study has the data. And now see this: the triglyceride less than 100, LDL less than 100. Triglyceride less than 100, but LDL is more than 100. So if one of these, like in between triglyceride and LDL, the LDL is abnormal, so you have the odd ratio is 1.3. So if the triglyceride value is less, LDL is less, so low SDL has got no risk for cardiovascular disease. So compared with isolated low HDL cholesterol, the risk of cardiovascular disease was 30 to 60% higher when low HDL was accompanied by higher levels of triglyceride, LDL, or both. So what we conclude, that if triglyceride and LDL or anyone or both are abnormal, that is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, just interpreting on the HDL value is not going to help you. So that's why the non-HDL is not going to help you. This is my position. So clinical trials done previously to present effects of drugs on HDL level in outcome. So many drugs have been used to increase the HDL level. So like clofaibrate, niacin, gemfibrozil, statin combinations. So the first time niacin showed a reduction in non-fatal MI and cardiovascular disease, coronary research group, but there is no evidence of efficacy was found for this clofaibrate treatment. The niacin treatment showed modest benefit in decreasing definite non-fatal recurrent MI, but did not decrease total mortality. So the total mortality was not decreased even after adding the niacin. Now the first time niacin showed reduction in non-fatal MI and cardiovascular disease. Now coming to gemfibrozil for the secondary prevention of coronary heart disease in males with low density of high density lipoprotein cholesterol. So this was a double-blind trial comparing gemfibrozil with placebo. The baseline HDL cholesterol was 40 or less, and the baseline LDL was 140 or less. The primary study outcome was non-fatal MI or death from coronary disease. So gemfibrozil was associated with reduction of 22% in the rate of the primary endpoint and reduction of 27% in the rate of stroke. And despite the fact that HDL cholesterol levels were increased by 6%, however, the baseline LDL cholesterol level in that trial, which predicted the widespread use of statin, was 11 milligram per deciliter. So this finding suggests that the rate of coronary events is reduced by raising HDL cholesterol and lowering the level of triglyceride without lowering the LDL cholesterol level. So in atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, controlled LDL addition of niacin to statin does not show any incremental clinical benefit. This is a conclusion of AIM-HIGH study. So if you have a controlled LDL value, just increasing the HDL value is not going to help you. This is the conclusion of AIM-HIGH study. So in this study, the niacin improved HDL cholesterol from baseline at the end of 5 years, but failed to show improved clinical benefits at the end of the trial. So you can see from the p-value, the 0.8, it is not significant. So, the primary endpoint, death from the coronary heart disease, non-fatal MI, ischemic stroke, hospitalization for acute coronary stroke, or symptom-driven coronary or cerebral revascularization. So even in the group when we compared with placebo, the niacin, it is not showing any benefit. Now, a drug niacin, the HPS2 thrice study, in which niacin with laropinamide in high-risk patient also did not show any incremental benefit. This study was published in NEJM in 2014 in July issue. So you can see the forest plot. You can see the p-value 0.51, 0.6, 0.03. So it has not shown any benefit. So extended release, the addition of niacin laproprinate to statin-based LDL cholesterol lowering therapy did not show significant reduction in the risk of major vascular events, but did increase the risk of serious adverse event. And in the recent times, CETP inhibitors had been evaluated for effect on HDL and related clinical outcomes. So here the CETP is there, and CETP inhibitors, if we use, it will increase the HDL cholesterol. So increased HDL cholesterol is there, but there is no benefit in terms of mortality benefits, in terms of events of cardiovascular disease. So there were various trials have been done, like Illuminate trial, which was done in starting 2004 and 2006 due to increase mortality in treatment groups. DEL outcome in 2008 is stopped in 2012 due to the lack of effect. And the recent one, the REVEAL study, was published in 2017, which shows some benefit, and I will discuss on later on. And the Accelerate study, it was also stopped in 2015 due to lack of effect. So as you can see, most of the CETP inhibitors, the studies have found there is no mortality benefit, and some of the studies have been prematurely stopped because there was no effect. So this was a drug anacetrapib in patient with atherosclerotic vascular disease. So total number of enrolls was 30,449, and duration of follow-up mean was 4.1. The mean age of the patient was 67. The female patients was 16, and person with diabetes is 37%. The mean SDL cholesterol value in anacetrapib group is 85. In placebo it was 42. The absolute difference was 43, and relative difference was 104. Just on the y-axis, you can see the patient with events, and on the x-axis, you just see the years of follow-up. So as you can see, after 3 years, the curves differs from one another. So there is a benefit in the first major cardiovascular event after 3 years of follow-up. The consistent benefits were observed across all primary and secondary endpoints, and delays onset of recurrent MI as well. So might be possible there are other factors why in most of the CETP inhibitors trials which have been used, they have shown no benefit, or they have shown the increased incidence of major cardiovascular event. But in this might be possible that we have taken the patient in which the LDL cholesterol was already controlled. So might be one of the reason. So whenever we talk about the drugs or the factors which can modify the SDL level, the lifestyle modification is the most preferred for improving the SDL level. So physical activity, there can be increment of SDL cholesterol in the tune of 5 to 10%. So increase, it leads, the effect is due to increased lipoprotein lipase activity, pre-beta SDL, reverse cholesterol transport, protective lipoprotein, stop smoking. So that's why we always, in a patient coming with diabetes, a patient coming with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, we focus, before starting a drug, we focus on lifestyle modification. So smoking stop, weight loss, alcohol consumption, limited alcohol consumption, and diet more on vegetables. So current guidelines recommendation on SDL management. So most of the guidelines like European and American are focusing on LDL and triglyceride as a dyslipidemia management, and recommended SDL level is low is less than 40, borderline low is 41 to 59, and optimal is more than 60. So still there is a hope for recommendation on SDL management in future. So we need to focus more root cause for a low SDL, like genetics. So different receptors and mutations which I talked in my initial slides, that is very important, and I think the future lies there. We will have modifications. We have modifications which can increase SDL value, and that SDL will be beneficial to protect you from cardiovascular disease. So ApoA1 mutations can lead to ApoA1 deficiency, lead to corneal opacity. There can be risk of early onset atherosclerosis. ABCA1 mutation can lead to Tenjius disease. It can lead to orange tonsil, peripheral neuropathy, hepatosplenomegaly, early onset atherosclerosis. LCAT deficiency. LCAT deficiency can lead to corneal opacity, nephropathy, fish-eye disease, or corneal opacity. So in a patient having LCAT deficiency, this type of patient, there will be low SDL, but there is no risk for coronary heart disease. So SDL modifying substances in clinical trials, various drugs are being used, like RVX208, which stimulates ApoA1 transcription, CER001, which SDL mimetic protein from recombinant ApoA1. So these are the future things which might become, and if found useful, because they are in the developmental stage, and still they are tested in different phases in clinical trials. So in net, what we can say that SDL is cardioprotective in nature. It is inversely associated with cardiovascular disease. But epidemiological studies have shown data that low HDL could be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, but no direct causation has been found. But clinical studies fail to show consistent benefits of increasing HDL in cardiovascular event reduction. So drugs which are increasing your HDL value, they are not showing any consistent benefits in cardiovascular event reduction. So in nutshell, in today's scenario, what is important to target triglyceride and LDL as a part of dyslipidemia management. Thank you.